Good morning and welcome to the Planning and Placemaking Committee of the 3rd of September 2025. I'm Councillor Ian Massey and I'm the convener of this committee. And I'll introduce you to the top table. On my far left is Councillor Grant Stewart, my Vice Convener, Miss Audrey Brown, Democratic Support Officer, and Mr Colin Elliott, Solicitor. And on my right is Mr Christian Smith, Development Management and Building Standards Service Manager, Mr Sean Panton, Major Applications and Enforcement, and Mr Paul Williamson, Team Leader, Local Applications. And as this is a hybrid meeting, members joining virtually are reminded that if you leave the meeting during consideration of any application, you are unable to participate or vote on that item when you return to the meeting. This also means that if a member loses their internet connection during consideration of any item, they should not vote on that item. Please advise the clerk via the meeting chat that you are leaving or the meeting from the meeting, or if you have lost your connection and are therefore unable to vote on the item. And whilst we are operating as a hybrid meeting for today's proceedings, can I remind councillors and officers to use the chat box to attract my attention, which all members should have access to. Q for questions, C for comment. I now ask the clerk to confirm the apologies and attendance of those in the chamber and online. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Morning, members. We have two apologies today. We have apologies from Councillor James with Councillor Forbes substituting, and apologies from Councillor Waters with Councillor McPherson substituting. We have Councillor Forbes joining us online. If he could let us know that he can hear us.
Yes, good morning. I can hear you well.
Okay, and we've got everybody else present in the chambers.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. And item 3 is the minutes. Can we agree the minutes of the meeting of the Planning and Placemaking Committee of the 9th of July 2025 and the minute of the meeting of the Planning and Placemaking of the 6th of August 2025? Thank you. Deputations. Can I ask the committee if they agree to hear deputations on item 521 and 531? Thank you. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the deputations and members of the public watching today. Your request to speak has been granted. You will be called to the lectern as we reach the relevant item on the agenda and be invited to make your deputation by the Vice Convener, followed by a period of time for questions from members. It is requested that the content of your deputation is kept relevant to the planning considerations in relation to the item of business being discussed. Please also ensure that when answering questions, your response remains relevant and direct to the questions asked. Item 5, applications for determination. So we go straight on to section 36, consultation. And this is to construct and operate Glentarkin Wind Farm at land 5.5 kilometres west of Copey St Fillan's, Crieff. And to introduce the report is Mr Panton.
Here we go, finally. So thank you, Convener, and good morning, councillors. So as stated, the first application on the agenda today is a wind farm development near St Fillan's, Crieff. I would point out that Perth and Kinross Council are not the determining authority for this application and are instead a consultee only. The determining authority in this instance is the Scottish Government's Energy Consents Unit, otherwise known as the ECU. We are today recommending that Perth and Kinross Council respond to the ECU with an objection to the proposed development. This is on grounds of significant landscape impacts. I would point out that Nature Scot have already objected on similar grounds. I will now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. So this first slide shows the location of the site. As you can see, the site is in a rural location between Loch Earn Head and St Fillan's, north of Loch Earn itself. The site forms part of the Drummond Estate and is approximately 45 kilometres west of Perth. Next slide, please. Here we can see a proposed site plan. In total, 12 wind turbines of up to 180 metres tip height are proposed, along with a battery energy storage system of up to 50 megawatts capacity, access tracks, underground cabling, a substation, control building, welfare facilities, telecommunications infrastructure, watercourse crossings and associated works. Members' attention is drawn towards the dotted line which almost divides the plan in half. To the right of the line is the Perth and Kinross Council area, and to the left of the line is the Stirling Council area. As can be seen, a large proportion of the site is within the Stirling Council area. However, this is primarily the access track. All of the turbines themselves are in the Perth and Kinross Council area. Next slide, please. We now have a proposed elevation of the turbines themselves, for which I would remind members that 12 are proposed with up to a 180 metre to tip height. To give members an indication of how tall 180 metres is, this is comparable to the Gherkin in London, which is also approximately 180 metres. Next slide, please. This plan now shows other wind farms within 20 kilometres of the site. To the top right, near Aberfeldy, you can see Griffin Wind Farm and Calicar Wind Farm, which are both operational. There is also North Calicar, which has been consented but not yet operational. To the bottom right, near Braco, you can see Strathallan Wind Farm, which is operational, and Strathallan Phase 2, which is consented. To the central bottom, again near Braco, you can see the Braes of Doon, which is operational. And finally, to the immediate right of the site, you can see Glenlednock Wind Farm, which is proposed and is currently a pending application with the Energy Consents Unit. Next slide, please. This plan now shows the elevation for the proposed operations building. This building measures approximately 34.14 metres at maximum length, 10.87 metres at maximum width, and 6.87 metres at maximum height. Next slide, please. We now have a proposed elevations for the battery energy storage system, which has an operating capacity of up to 50 megawatts. Each of these batteries appears like a large storage container, and you can also see that a spares building is proposed, which appears like an agricultural building. Next slide, please. We now move on to the first of the visualisations. This shows the development when viewed from Rob Roy Way near Mial Oar, which is a popular walking route. You can see all 12 of the turbines from this vantage point. Next image, please. This next shot shows the site when viewed from Ben Lors, with Loch Tay in the foreground. Please note that whilst the site itself is not within a national scenic area, this viewpoint is taken from within the Loch Rannoch and Glen Lyon National Scenic Area. Next image, please. We now see a visualisation from Mial Hurdy, which is located on the edge of the Loch Rannoch and Glen Lyon National Scenic Area. This viewpoint is also within the Glen Lochy Local Landscape Area. The site is approximately 16.8 kilometres to the southeast of this viewpoint. Next image, please. We now have a view more locally from Ben Hornsey near Comrie. Next image, please. This penultimate image is taken from Moorvane and is within the River Erne National Scenic Area. You can just make out St Fillins to the right of Loch Erne. Next image, please. This final visualisation is taken from St Fillins Hill, which is also located within the River Erne National Scenic Area. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the location plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Panton. I see we've already got questions in. If people would like to ask questions, please put a Q in the chat. Bailey Williamson.
Yes, thank you, Convener. My question is about, I'm just seeking some clarity on Stirling Council have approved, or not approved, but found no reason to object to the formation of a track up to the wind farm. And I was just wondering how that impacts the overall application if one local authority is saying one thing and the other one's saying another thing, and what are the impacts of that? Thank you. Oops.
Yeah, I'm not having much luck with the mics today. Yeah, so basically the energy consents unit will treat everyone in a consultee in the same way we treat an application. So say we get an application and transport planning are in support, but biodiversity object, for example, it's then up to us to weigh up everything. So the energy consents units will weigh up that Stirling Council haven't objected, but PKC have. So it's ultimately a decision for them, but it doesn't prevent us from submitting an objection to the ECU just because Stirling Council haven't. So hopefully that clarifies.
Is there a potential, therefore, that Stirling Council, or should I say the developer, could come back with two separate applications? And what would be the implications of that?
It would be unlikely that the developer would come back with two applications. So for context, on one of the plans I showed, so basically the left part of the site that's within Stirling, that's only really the access road that's leading to the site. All the turbines themselves are within PKC. So if they did come in with two separate applications, say they came in with just the turbines and not the access track, then it would be, well, how are you accessing that site? How are you getting the turbines there? So that probably wouldn't be a competent application in its own right because it wouldn't be clear how to access it. So really, there are no implications for us as Perth and Kinross Council that Stirling haven't objected. So hopefully that clarifies.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. Just a quick point for Mr. Panton, and really just to get out to the public. Our objection to this, if we assume to ratify what you've said, that doesn't kill the project. It merely instigates a public inquiry. Is that the procedure? So look, just to make it clear for the public.
Yes, correct, Councillor Braun. Just because we're objecting doesn't automatically mean the application will be refused, and it would likely trigger a public inquiry for which the council would have an opportunity to make our case and the public.
There would, however, be the opportunity for the proponents of the development to seek to address any concerns that the council may have by revision. So it's not that nothing can be done but to have a public local inquiry. There would be discussions had, and then it would be for the council to decide whether or not those amendments address the concerns or not. If not, then it would trigger a public inquiry.
Thank you for that. Councillor Forbes.
Thanks, Convener. Sean, you referenced earlier on the shed to store stuff in, and you said it was like an agricultural shed. Can you give us some sense of scale? Is it literally like a huge agricultural shed, or is it smaller than that?
Thanks, Councillor Forbes. Yeah, so I don't have the exact sizes here, but from the elevations proposed, it would appear as kind of a medium scale agricultural building. So it's big enough to keep spares and stuff in for the battery storage and anything associated with the turbines. So I can get those numbers for you if you're desperate for them, but it would appear as a kind of medium agricultural building, I would say.
Thanks for that. It didn't, from what I can see, it didn't appear on any of your visuals. Or if it did, could we go back to whichever one it appeared on, because I missed it if it was there?
Yes, that's fine. If we wouldn't mind getting the slides back, please, and I'll tell you when to stop. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
It's okay. So if we go back past all the visuals. Right, that one, sorry. Thank you. So on that plan there, on the very top section there, you can see the shed I'm referring to. So to give you an idea of scale, those kind of squares to the right of that building would be about the size of a standard storage container. And on the very bottom section there as well, you can see the kind of size of the length of the building. So hopefully, Councillor Forbes, that gives you a better context of the Spears building I was referring to.
It does in terms of scale, but I wondered if it was on, I saw that slide, but what I didn't see was it on your visuals, so we don't know whereabout it is within the landscape.
Ah, okay. Within the visuals that I showed, you can't actually see that building just due to the surrounding topography. So the turbines, because they're 180 metres high, you can see them from most of the surrounding area, but within the kind of valley itself, that building will be hidden from those viewpoints that I've shown.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Convener. Just a couple of quick. Angus has kind of asked my main question as well, but if you could just in passing, where is this actually located? Is that kind of up the valley, or is it down near the entrance?
Yeah, sorry, if we can go back a couple more slides. That's okay. Keep going back. Back again. Yes, so see within this plan the yellow box to the kind of north. That's this area.
Do you think it's possible for a follow-up as well? I do have another question. Just generally, the kind of implication that you recommend rejecting this is because of the size and the number of the turbines, similar to previous discussions we've had about solar panels and other things. If they were smaller turbines, because I noticed they are 180 metre tip height, which is the biggest ones you can get in the moment in Scotland, if there was less of them or they were smaller, would it be more acceptable? I know it's a hypothetical question.
Yes, so National Planning Framework 4 in Scotland and our LDP 2 are generally quite supportive of renewable development. So there's definitely scope for renewable development such as a wind farm. So yes, in short, I know, like you say, it's speculative, but there's definitely scope for a more positive recommendation should they do some kind of alterations.
Thank you. Bailey McLaren.
Thank you, Convener. My question is, I'm aware that the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park comes into the area around St Fillan's, and is that of something that we should have consideration towards as well? Thank you.
Yes, it is. So if we can go back another slide, please, Magda. Sorry. Yes, so just for members' reference, the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park boundary, so it runs from kind of Killin, which is just off the screen to the top left. It comes down to Loch Earn Head and it runs along the northern boundary of Loch Earn to St Fillan's and kind of wraps around. So this site is touching the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park. So because of that, it is competent to consider what the landscape impacts are within the park, because it's quite clearly visible from within the park. So yes, it would be competent to consider that. Yeah, they have been consulted as part of the application. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. I just noticed at point 5 in the paper, it says a further wind farm development at Glen Lednock wind farm is proposed on an adjacent site. And these wind turbines are going to be even bigger, given the context of the last question about the possibility if they were smaller. Is this something that's going to come to us? Or can you just explain that situation for me, please?
That's fine. So sorry, Magda, if we can skip forward a couple of slides. So next again, that one, yes. Right, so the application before you today is everything contained within that red line. You'll notice just to the immediate right of it, the kind of yellow dots, that's the Glen Lednock one you refer to, Councillor Allen. So that is currently a pending application with the ECU. We haven't provided our response yet, but when we are ready to provide a response, it will be coming back to this committee for agreement. So we're recommending objection of this one. And we'll have our recommendation in due course of Glen Lednock, but you will get your say on this committee.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson, second question.
Yes, thank you, Convener. I was wondering if Sean could give an explanation for the record, a public record, about how the National Park are able to respond about the view, but residential properties aren't. So if you could explain the difference, please.
Certainly. So you're correct that nobody is entitled to view within planning terms. So if a member of the public objected to an application because they said, I'm losing my view, that wouldn't be a competent material consideration. However, for Loch Lomond and the national parks, when they're referring to the view, they're referring to the landscape impacts and the visual impacts that will have. And obviously landscape considerations within a national park are paramount. So when they're referring to the view, they're referring to the visual impact. of the landscape. So hopefully that clarifies, but you are correct that nobody is entitled to view in planning terms.
Thank you. Bailey McLaren, second question.
Thank you, convener. My question is about this slide that's sitting there. You know, there's a lot of concern about cumulative impact throughout Perth and Kinross of all these applications that are coming through. Am I correct that there is maybe a potential, there's another one or maybe two that are not sitting on that map that are, I'm certainly aware of, within communities? They're raising awareness of this.
So yeah, so on this map we are showing the operational ones, so they're the ones that are built and spinning day to day. We're showing consented ones that are they have consent from us or the ECU, so they could go and build them tomorrow. And we're also showing the ones that are currently in the planning process. Ones that are just talk at the moment or community consultation aren't included on this plan. So that's only showing the ones that are consented, operational or in the planning process. So hopefully that clarifies. I'd also point out, just for members, whilst we're on this screen, that is 20 kilometres of a fairly hilly landscape. So from one point of that map to another, it is difficult to see because it's so far and there's so many mountains intervening. So on that plan, it does look like they're all quite close, but on the ground, that is quite difficult to see between two.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just a bit concerned about the cumulative impact of the collision zones on red kites, merlins, and golden eagles, seagulls, etc. And I feel that they've been downplayed by Nature Scotland. And I was just wondering if you could comment on what our biodiversity's opinion is on that, please.
Thank you, Bailey Williamson. So yes, as part of this application, there was a comprehensive EIA, environmental impact assessment, submitted, and you're correct, it did show that there was an impact upon breeding birds and the likes. Now, our biodiversity officer has reviewed that suite of documents and they're offering no objection to the development because they feel that appropriate planning conditions and further survey work could protect that. So the council's view, if you like, is that we've got no objection to that, subject to if we were going back today with no objection, we would be recommending a suite of conditions, but because we're recommending an objection today, we've not got those conditions.
I was just wondering, I take it our biodiversity officer will not have any data on the collision zones that have been identified in the map and the impact on those species of birds, or is that a Nature Scotland issue?
Yeah, so within the EIA, when there's a protected species, for example, if it finds, let's just say, a set for a badger, for example, because they're protected species, the EIA publicly can only say we've found a set, but we don't actually reveal specifically where it is, and that's to offer protection to that set, because if it's in the public domain that, oh, there's a badger set in that exact corner over there by the tree, public might go to try and get sight of the badger, poachers, for example. So within the EIA, it will just say in public terms there is a set, but the biodiversity officer themselves has full access to where that information and where it is so that they can make an informed decision. So does that clarify what you were asking?
Yeah, I think my issue is the maps have identified the collision zones, which seem to be over the turbines, and it was, well, if there is a collision zone, what does that actually mean for the species? And I'm trying to differentiate it. I take it our biodiversity officer will not be responding on that. That would be a Nature Scotland thing to pick up on rather than ourselves, and I'm trying to figure out, should Nature Scotland have at least have commented on that or put something in as an objection?
Yeah, so it is a Nature Scot comment to make, and they could essentially say, they could recommend mitigation, for example, that the turbine has red tips or something to make it stand out more for birds, but it would ultimately be a Nature Scot comment, and we've consulted them as part of this application, and they have objected to the application, but it's on grounds of landscape rather than biodiversity.
Thank you. Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, convener. I'm just wondering, the connection to the grid, where does that run from and to?
Yep, so sorry, Magda, you know what I'm going to ask here, if we can go back to the proposed site plan, please. Yes, so with this proposal, Councillor Cuthbert, while we're waiting for this, it's underground cabling they're proposing to connect in. So in terms of the visual impact of the cabling itself, it's underground. But sorry, Magda, one more. Yes, so it essentially comes down by the track, that kind of green line you can see on the screen, and connects into the grid down at that road between Lochgarn Head and St Fillan's, but the majority of it is underground cabling.
Thank you. Bailey Wilson, you've a further question.
Yeah, I do apologise. My question is about the road and getting access to the site. I think Sean, you showed us a picture earlier where there was a bit of a wider view of the site, and I know there's a hydro board dam just over the hill, with an access road clearly to it, and I'm not understanding why they're not using that road as opposed to introducing a new road.
Thank you. So yeah, we don't actually have anyone from transport planning here today, but I did discuss this matter with them prior to the meeting because I thought this question might come up. And the answer is that the existing road that's there basically wouldn't be suitable for the turbine delivery of this scale. And in order to make it suitable would require significant enhancements, which wouldn't be appropriate for a small rural road such as that. So the preference of transport planning is to have the access road in this location, because that way they can get the turbine delivery much easier, and it's also better for maintenance and stuff going forward. So the reason the road you were referring to at Glen Lednock, I think, it's just it would require significant enhancements in order to actually get the turbines there.
I think the road I was meaning was actually coming out of Killin through to there's a wee lock-in just to the north, and I'm trying to see if it's not showing on that map, but yeah, there's a wee lock-in to the north, so it's that road. So I take it would be the same answer. That's just to the top left-hand corner of the map there.
Yes, I know the one you're meaning, and I discussed that with transport planning too, because they'd looked at all options to get to this site, because obviously our preference would be to have no new tracks at all. So the first thing transport planning do look at is there a way they can come in without having to put a whole new road and access in? And they discounted all the roads round about for the same reasons, that they'd need significant enhancements to get the turbine of these scales here.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Therefore, I will put forward a motion. And my motion is that the committee agrees with the recommendation of the Development Management and Building Standards Service Manager to object to the proposed Glentarkin Wind Farm development, and instructs officers to formally notify the Scottish Government Energy Consents Unit of this objection on the following grounds. The significant adverse landscape impact. The proposal will result in a significant adverse effect on the Loch Rannoch and Glen Lyon National Scenic Area, compromising the overall integrity of the designation. This contravenes MPF policy for natural places, which requires that development proposals affecting NSAs must not compromise their objectives or integrity. Conflict with local development plan policies. This development is contrary to the Perth and Kinross Local Development Plan 2019, specifically Policy 33, renewable and low carbon energy, which supports renewable energy only where impacts are acceptable. Policy 39, landscape, which seeks to protect the character and quality of the designated landscape. Insufficient mitigation of environmental effects. Despite the inclusion of mitigation measures, the Environmental Impact Assessment Report identifies permanent and significant visual and character impacts on nationally and locally designated landscapes, including the River Erne NSA and the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park. Nature Scot has formally objected to the proposal due to its impact on the special landscape qualities of both the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park and the Loch Rannoch and Glen Lyon NSA, reinforcing the Council's concerns. National development status does not override the landscape harm. While the proposal qualifies as a national development under NPF Policy 11 Energy, the significant and irreversible harm to nationally important landscapes outweighs the benefits of renewable energy generation in this instance. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, convener. Yep, I concur with the elements that you put in your motion and happy to second.
Thank you. Do we have an amendment? No amendment. Okay, therefore the goes back to the ECU with the objections from the council. Thank you.
Sorry, members, just clarifying the terms and making sure as to whether or not it's in line with the report. And I've had clarification. Convener mentioned about the River Erne, but that's when it's viewed, the proposal is reviewed from the River Erne rather than the impact on the River Erne itself, which was mentioned in the report. So in other words, it's refused in line with the report.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson, you wish to comment?
Yes, I have a number of comments. Thank you, convener. I think my comments would be is, whilst clearly we're refusing the application, I would also comment that there's been no consultation with the Killeen, Lochte, Kenmore Community Council areas on the impacts and potential financial benefits. I would also like to comment on the fact of the report mentions about the fire risks. And if this does go ahead, avoid using the use of twin tube piping, which to prevent the spread of fire, and maybe go for concrete piping. And finally, potentially use hydroseeding to try and get the environment restored as quickly as possible, as opposed to just generally scattering seed, which would just end up as bird food for a while. So possibly use hydroseeding if necessary.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comment? No? Okay, then we move on to the next application. All right, okay, we'll just give it a second for David to appear back. Okay, then we'll move on to the next application 5.2, which is for the formation of a 30 megawatt battery energy storage facility comprising battery storage units, ancillary buildings and equipment, access road and associated works at land 600 metres northeast of Cordon Farm, Abernethy. And to introduce the report is Mr. Panton.
Thank you, convener. So as stated, the next item on the agenda today is for a 30 megawatt battery storage facility near Abernethy. Unfortunately, we are recommending refusal today on grounds of landscape and visual impacts, cumulative impacts in the Abernethy area and impact upon a scheduled monument. I would remind members that an update was circulated updating the reasons for refusal and the contents of paragraphs 109 and 110. Also, an update to give you that's not within there is paragraph 8 of the report refers to an application that was approved. This is incorrect. This application wasn't approved. The one referred to in paragraph 8, it was actually returned. but I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. So here we can see the location of the site, which is to the north of Abernethy and approximately 1.5 kilometres northwest of the nearest substation. The site is an agricultural field which is currently in arable use, although members should note that it does not qualify as prime agricultural land. There is an area of woodland to the southeast of the site and the River Erne is to the further west and north. Next slide, please. We now have another location plan which shows more clearly the relationship of the site to Abernethy itself. Next slide, please. We now have the proposed site plan. Here you can see the general arrangement proposed. 30 battery storage units are proposed, along with a customer substation and DNO substation. Next slide, please. We now have a typical elevation plan for the battery units. As can be seen, these appear largely similar to storage container and measure approximately 12.2 metres at maximum length, 2.5 metres at maximum width, and 3.5 metres at maximum height. Next slide, please. We now have the proposed elevation for the substation element. This is fairly standard design for a new substation. Next slide, please. This plan now shows some of the fencing and CCTV proposed. The fencing will measure approximately 2.5 metres at maximum height. I'll now take members through a series of recent photographs taken on the case officer's site visit only last week. First image, please. This first photograph shows the access road to the site from the A913. Next image, please. This next photograph shows the access road further on near the residential property known as Cordon Mains or Provost Mains, with Cordon Farm beyond in the distance. Next image, please. We now move on to the site itself. The orange arrow denotes the approximate location of the site. As can be seen, the site is relatively exposed here, and as such, a proposal such as this, in our view, would have significant landscape and visual impacts. These impacts, combined with the cumulative impact of other similar developments in the Abernethy area, create concern and as such have resulted in recommended reasons 1 and 2 for refusal. Members should also note that the access tracks leading to the site cross through the scheduled monument known as Carry Roman Temporary Camp. Historic Environment Scotland are concerned at the utilisation of this route and have objected to the proposed development. Reason 3 for refusal is therefore in relation to the potential impact upon the scheduled monument. Next image, please. The next image shows part of the site in the distance, which is included within the red line boundary. This area is where some landscaping is proposed. Next slide, please. This final photograph shows some of the site again, which is included within the red line boundary, with the woodland beyond. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the proposed site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Panton. We do have deputations on this item, so I'll now hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputation procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Can I call on Ms. Matthias and Mr. Wilson? For people online, Ms. Matthias is the agent and Mr. Wilson is the landowner. Good morning. I'm sure you're aware you've got 10 minutes for your deputation between you. I'll give you a prompt after 5 minutes. So whenever you feel ready, just press the red button and start your deputation, please.
Good morning, Convener and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Michael Wilson. I'm the farmer and landowner where the proposed battery storage facility would be located. My family have farmed at Cordon for 106 years. I have farmed it for the past 21 years with the aim to pass it on to the next generation in better shape than I found it, both environmentally and financially. That is what this project is about for me, long-term thinking and making the farm resilient for the future. When reading the report of handling, I can understand your concerns regarding cumulative visual impact of this project, but let me be clear, there is no other battery project consented or in planning on my farm as stated in that report. The battery site is well away from any other battery project around Abernethy, well away from any housing, and has received very little objection, and will not stop the general public enjoying the countryside around my farm. It is also important to understand the scale and quality of the land involved. The development platform covers just 0.8 of a hectare in a very low yielding area of my farm. The soil type has a very high clay content and is therefore only suitable for lower margin cereal crops of wheat and barley. not potatoes or carrots, and is classed as non-prime agricultural land. It is worth noting that this site, while currently in arable use, offers limited biodiversity. Through this proposal, we plan to screen the facility. This project will actually improve the natural environment in the area, not just preserve it. I believe this project will increase my farm output, as income from this project will be reinvested into the most productive parts of my farm, improving yields through measures such as irrigation, and this investment will be kept locally where it matters most. My farm is not just about me. We currently employ 7 people across 6 local households. This diversification helps me to ensure their investment in wages, in their working environment and training programmes, meaning we can keep these families rooted in the rural community and create viable careers for the next generation. As part of our commitment to the local community, we also support a local agricultural charity called the Royal Highland Educational Trust. We host school visits and open our farm to young people, hoping to inspire the next generation to connect with farm and food in the countryside. The Council's current corporate plan aligns with this project in many ways, but one vision of the plan really stood out to me. People and businesses are increasingly able to prosper in a local economy which supports low carbon ambitions and offers opportunities for all. I'm so proud that this small piece of my land could contribute so much, not just locally, but also contribute nationally to the greener energy transition while continuing to produce food, provide jobs and support education in our local area. For all these reasons, agriculturally, environmentally, economically, I respectfully ask the committee to support this application. Thank you for your time, and I welcome questions at the end.
Good morning, members. My name is Tanya Mathias of RPS Tetra Tech, and I'm the agent working on behalf of the applicant. Thank you very much for letting us speak today. We are keen to outline the project from a developer perspective and ensure that members have all information in front of them in order to fully consider the proposal. I know members are familiar with the global climate emergency, the need to reduce emissions and adapt to climate change. You are also aware of the significant weight afforded to all forms of renewable energy development by the development plan. I won't therefore labour these themes, but would remind members of the role best developments play in alleviating energy generation curtailment by providing additional grid capacity. Turning to the application, the total built area of the proposed development is 0.8 hectares. The proposed area of planting is 2.88 hectares. Contrary to the report of handling, the site has no planning history. There have been no approved best development as cited at paragraph 8, and paragraphs 15 to 23 are duplications of cases listed in paragraphs 8 to 14. We submitted a briefing note on the 21st of August in accordance with instruction from the Council and the standing orders. However, we understand this wasn't circulated and are concerned that appropriate process has not been followed. The note was subsequently emailed directly to members on Monday by myself. Now turning to the reasons for refusal. Refusal reason 1 cites cumulative impact and conflict with policies 1A, 1B, 39A and 4 of the development plan. Cumulative developments can be better understood by referring to Table 2 of the applicant's note. This illustrates the number of applications that relate to the same sites. Appendix A is a plan that shows their corresponding locations. 8 applications alone relate to the site to the north of the cemetery. A number of permissions have been superseded and others are about to expire. This leaves only 3 BESS likely to be built in Abernethy. 2 lie adjacent to each other and 1 will be read as an L shape as one. Policy 1A focuses on design, climate change and creating links with features on and off site. The proposal is for functional infrastructure central to addressing climate change. A landscape strategy is proposed which creates links with woodland along the Nethy Burn, and off-site planting is proposed along the Old Ferry Road core path. Policy 1B and 39A consider landscape character. The development plan team consultation response states that substantive planting will reduce impacts on the agricultural LCT, acknowledgement from the planning service that there are no significant concerns. Policy 4 relates to natural places. The site currently contains only farmland. The proposal includes native woodland, standard trees and species-rich grassland. Natural features will be created to strengthen existing green infrastructure corridors. As such, there is no policy conflict as refusal reason 1 states. Refusal reason 2 refers to inadequate mitigation and conflict with policy 11E of the development plan. 2.88 hectares of mitigation is proposed. This is not an inadequate level of planting or mitigation compared to a 0.8 hectare development footprint. The development plan team response describes the proposed mitigation as substantive. There is no policy conflict as set out in refusal reason 2. Refusal reason 3. HES objected to the application and requested further information. This was provided to the Council and HES on the 24th of June, however, was not published on the Council planning portal. We have included evidence of this submission as Appendix D to the applicant's note. A response was received from HES on the 21st of August, which confirmed the applicant's position that other routes were unsuitable. Further information was requested on the temporary track specification, and this is now in preparation. Unlike the refusal reason states, there is no absence of route selection information. We have highlighted procedural, administration and missing information issues which raise concerns around prejudice, transparency and accessibility. Members have not had sight of all details of the case or contextual documents to make a fair and informed decision, and we respectfully request the case is deferred until the specific circumstances can be fully assessed. The applicant is keen to work with all parties to deliver the requirements. To conclude, we are of the view that the proposal is being brought to committee prematurely and that overall it reflects the long-term public interest for agricultural business, climate change and the environment. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputations. We have questions in already, so we'll go to Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I'd just like to ask the deputies. Part of the proposal of your proposal is to screen the site. I wonder if you could give us a bit more detail on what that would involve. Thank you.
Yep, we have a landscape strategy, so it will contain most of the area. Oh, sorry. Yep. If you look at the plan, you can see that where the best development is. To the north of that, there will be species-rich grassland, and then to the south, east and west, we'll have a long, a sort of U-shaped bulk of woodland, and then it stretches down to the the Nethy Burn woodland along to the southeast, and then along the core path, there's more woodland proposed.
Bailey McLaren.
Thank you. My question is actually to Mr. Wilson. You know, I am well aware of the pressures that sit within the agricultural sector. Do you view this application to be, in effect, a farm diversification? It's not a farm shop, it's not a whatever, but is this, you term this as your farm diversification in order for the sustainability, ongoing sustainability of your business?
Absolutely, yeah. No ambitions of a farm shop at all. You know, this is a diversification to allow me to farm and the best I can. I'm a farmer. Yeah.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks for asking. I've got a couple of questions, but this one first is Mr. Wilson again. You mentioned we've heard that the land is not prime. It's 3.2, so it's not prime. But you did mention that you can grow wheat and barley. I mean, do you actually use it for wheat and barley? That's my first question. Obviously, there'll be a demand for that sort of crop. Obviously, I mean, wheat makes bread, as far as my school knowledge goes. But do you use it? That's what I'm coming to this point.
Yeah, we do grow cereal crops on it, only cereal crops. Yeah, demand comes and goes. Malt and barley is not very in demand this year, and yeah, wheat mostly in Scotland goes into the drinks industry, to be honest. So yeah, it's arable crops. As I said, there's a very high clay content in there, so it's very risky putting in a root crop like carrots or potatoes. You lose the whole crop easily.
Councillor Ellingworth.
Thank you. This was discussed at Abernethy Community Council last week, and the question was, where is the cabling to Jamesfield going to go? Is it going to go through the road, through the A913, or is there another route?
The cabling doesn't form part of this application, so it will be separate to this and under separate consideration. but it will be underground, I believe. So. I'm not sure. We'd have to speak to the applicant about it.
Yeah, it's all underground, and it's through farmland. It doesn't go near any of the public roads.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener. And it's to Mr Wilson. Thanks for your deputation. We've just discussed the fact that you use the land currently to grow wheat and barley, and regardless of what it is. What I'm trying to get an establishment of is what percentage of your arable land does this actually take?
We farm about 900 acres in total, so it's about 0.2, 0.3 of the development site. So with the screening, probably about 0.5% of my land.
Councillor Braun.
Come back quick, Vice Convener, sorry. The question there for Mr Mathias, if I may. You mentioned that there are 3 likely developments in Abernethy, battery storage. So my question is, why do we need a 4th? I can appreciate we need more of them, but why do we have to Abernethy?
Mainly because the substation has been extended and it's got capacity to accept the level of generation being proposed in the area.
Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I'm trying to work out where the Roman fort is, the Carey fort, because there's reference to it in the thing, but I couldn't find it on the maps. I've been looking at different sites, seem to place it different places. So can you point out where it is on there?
So it covers the access. It covers the access track on the way in. The access track didn't want to come through the village, so it was taken across the arable field, and it crosses a temporary Roman marching camp.
The north-south axis track is out with the monument, so it will extend from where the red line is and then to Carey Stank, the bit so between that stretch there.
So it's not actually near where you're putting the units themselves?
No, it's a temporary track that we're proposing with aluminium panels, and Hes want to know about the performance because there's different types depending on ground conditions. So it could be 3 meters wide, 6 meters wide, or 12 meters wide. So we're just trying to work out the load and what level of span that the track will need.
Councillor Forbes, did you manage to follow that being online? It was the bottom left of the present picture.
Yeah, yes, I did. I'm up to date. Thank you.
Okay. Convener Massey.
Councillor Illing was before me, but if he wants to give way, then.
Councillor Illingworth had a question already.
Thank you. Is it not the case that there is already a temporary track being built from the road to Carey to go between the road to Carey and the big railway bridge anyway already?
Yes, there is, but it's due to be removed imminently because the solar farm's been constructed.
Convener Massey.
Thank you. Mr Wilson, you stated earlier on that you have 700 acres of land. 900, sorry. Why choose? I mean, one of the reasons for refusal is the location of it, and that will be the appearance. So, be a development therefore considered contrary. Basically, it will be seen by everyone. Is there no other place on your land that this could have been built?
It's the nearest proximity to the substation. It's very low class, well, very marginal land for me. So, you know, you're obviously worried about losing prime agricultural land in the area. So and we can screen it really well with what we're proposing. So those were the proximity to the substation and the grade of the arable land was really my main considerations when originally discussing this and choosing the location with the Elgin Energy.
Thank you. You say about screening, the screening, how long will that take to actually screen that? It looks a very open area. So the screening is not going to be instant. It'll take time for any screening to grow or develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe there's a condition could be put in for putting higher, more established trees into the application. But you know, the screening does connect with an existing woodland, you know, and it will wrap around the whole site. So, you know, over time, yeah, it'll maybe look a little bit stark to begin with, but yeah, over time it will blend in and no one will really know it's there.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Question to you both, really. With regards to the building of this, understand once it's done and the landscaping's done, that's all fine. But what about the build of itself? There's been a lot of discussion today about the track and its requirements. How many wagons and what weight are those going to be going in each direction whilst that's being constructed?
The crane would be the heaviest item going across it, but every axle has a weight of 10 tons. So each, you know, if it's 100 ton, it has 10 axles. So really the weight of the machines is spread over a long area, if you like. So I wouldn't be too worried about the weights moving over the land. I think the roadway would be engineered to take the weight of that and not do any damage to to whatever scheduled monument is below. So yeah, there will be mostly Arctic sized lorries because these batteries are containers on the backs.
That's what I'm getting to. How many Arctics, 40 tonners, are going to be going up and down that track each day, and for how long?
I don't know that information offhand, but it is in the transport statement. And I think there's a peak construction period. It's usually around week 8, where you have the majority of deliveries. So it is in the submission documents, but I don't know offhand how many there will be. Oh, okay.
It's my understanding that these batteries are big containers. So and there's 30 of them on the site. So layman's terms, 30 loads, 30 lorries in and out.
The construction phase will have considerable amounts of traffic going up and coming away, taking stuff in and taking stuff away. I'm trying to get a gauge on how many wagons are going up and down that track on a daily basis and for how long, because it will be considerable.
I can check the information and come back to you on it, but I can't answer immediately. It is typically across a 6-month period, and then there's a sort of very peak intensive time. Sometimes it can be every 11 minutes. There's a delivery. There is a banksman proposed. There are traffic control measures, and there is a construction traffic management plan, which will ensure, you know, that the turning off the A913 is safe. So it has been accepted. There's no objection from Highways or the Roads Authority on this application. And when you look at the percentage of increase of HGVs, it's assessed as negligible. So I can remember that, but I don't know the numbers particularly. So.
Councillor Allen, your questions could be seen as a wee bit obtuse. Could you maybe expand on your reasons of your questions, just for members of the public and what have you?
The last thing I want to be is obtuse. That wasn't the reasoning. We're getting many of these things coming in, and the complaints are about the traffic and its increase in the local environment. So it might not be an effect on the farm itself, but the locals will see a significant increase in traffic for a significant amount of time. That was the reason for asking the question.
We're working to keep it outside of the village, which is why we have gone with this route, because if you go further in and then you're up Hatton Lane and then you're nearer the school, you're nearer residential development. So we are out of the way, you know, and not intending to cause, you know, a lot of chaos with and also the other solar farms have been built out. So that was a concern of the Roads Authority, that there would be that cumulative impact, and there won't be, because this will come 2 years later.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Vice Convener. That's probably a question for both of you again, and I'm following on from Councillor Allen a little bit. Access for emergency vehicles, particularly fire tenders. These battery storages, whether it's high risk or low risk, they can catch fire. So how accessible is it for an emergency vehicle? And I ask it because one of the objectors mentioned there is a weakened bridge over a burn. I'm not sure if that's been reinforced or not. I haven't got note where the burn was, but they say there was a weakened bridge. So the question is really how accessible in an emergency is it for fire tenders to get to a fire?
In an emergency, they would just come straight down the main farm road under the railway bridge, no problem. There is a height restriction on there, but fire engines aren't a problem to get under. The main farm road is in the middle of the village, and it joins in just, you see where the road goes across and then goes down. So yeah, fire engines aren't, in my view, aren't a problem to get in if I had an emergency on the farm.
Thank you for your deputation and taking questions. There appears to be no further questions. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations, so I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members, do they have any questions for officers? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Convener. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just start off. I just wondered if you could comment. The last deputation made a few comments about submissions they'd made to this application and they'd not been received, and other comments like that. Was there any comment you want to make on that at all?
Yes, Councillor Harvey. So you'll see within the committee report update that we'd said paragraphs 109, 110 needed updated. So at time of writing the report, we had requested that additional information to satisfy the HES objection was submitted, and it hadn't been submitted at time of writing the report. When the report was published, that had then been submitted. Now, we sent that back to HES for comment, and HES had come back at that point and said that they were satisfied with the information that had been submitted, but it wasn't enough for them to remove their objection. So they have submitted additional information since the report was written. It has gone back to HES. HES are satisfied with what's been submitted, but it's still not enough for them to remove their objection. So that's why we still have reason 3 for refusal. Hopefully that clarifies.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Convener. The Perth and Kinross Heritage Trust have put on a condition for some light archaeological analysis of the site, but they haven't. Is it the case that they haven't requested a written statement of archaeological instruction?
If you wouldn't mind, can I get back to you on that question, please? I just need to double check their contribution.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. Just wanted to clarify the situation with this accumulation factor. We've got several listed here, but Ms. Mathias said there was in fact only 3. Have we got a discrepancy there, or is that just interpretation here?
Yes, so like I said in my introduction, the site history section is correct other than paragraph 8, and it is correct that there is a duplication at the end. So the report's not wrong, it just mentions 2 things twice, but the one referred to in paragraph 8 is incorrect. But yes, it's largely down to interpretation. We are talking about this specific site, but because we're also refusing on cumulative impact, we felt it was appropriate to mention the applications out with this actual application site. So that's why there is a bit of discrepancy, but it's the report is right other than paragraph 8.
Sorry, maybe to clarify, the report considered that there is cumulative impact that is adverse on the understanding of what projects have been approved and how they are likely to be developed. So it's not been the case that additional projects or overlapping or excessive cumulative approvals have been considered. The reality has been considered, but yes, I think there are some incorrect statements in the report, but the theme and the outcome remains.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener. In the deputation, there was a comment that given the amount of disagreements that they have with regards to this condition, we should consider deferring. Is that something that we would consider?
So we've got 3 reasons for refusal, and the third reason for refusal, the one that about the HES topic in the camp, that is resolvable. So if we were to defer it, that could be resolved because HES are close to getting that resolved. However, we could defer it, get that reason for refusal removed, but our stance would still be that reasons 1 and 2 are competent. So we chose not to seek that information because our recommendation to this committee will ultimately be the same. It would just have 2 reasons for refusal instead of 3.
Thank you. Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you. There were just 3 objections to this application. Would you consider that a large number of objections from locals or a high number of objections?
I don't think you can really determine or that has any particular relevance. Probably would be, some applications we might receive 25,000 objections, some may receive none. What we've got to do is consider matters in relation to the planning merits, not the level of objection. Obviously, we would consider the planning related matters set out in objections, which we would do in any case, but I wouldn't want to go down the road of have people objected, does that make it acceptable or not, because that's not a relevant consideration.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, convener. I was just to kind of elucidate a bit more of the point you were making there as far as the objections were concerned. So, because this is quite similar to a previous battery storage, maybe a couple of years ago when I first started in size. So it's really to do with the screening and its location. So aside from the cumulative effect, which is obviously both its screening and location is the reason that this is rejected and the other one was accepted, again, hypothetically.
Yes, that's correct. So Councillor Massey kind of touched upon it within his question to the deputies. How long is the planting going to take to get established? So just now there is nothing there. As we've heard from the deputies, it's currently an arable field that's growing crops. So once the facility goes in, they then have to plant all the surrounding landscaping, and then it takes time for that to grow. And obviously we look at the life of the development, how long that takes to grow. These batteries at maximum height are 3.5 meters. That's quite high, really, in a field setting. So in order for landscaping to get to that level, it's a considerable number of years. So we take it all into consideration. If, for example, this was hard up against the existing woodland, we'd maybe have a different view, because then we'd say, okay, the planting on one side takes however long to grow, but there's already established on the other side. Where it is just now, we'd have to rely on it all growing round about it. So yeah, you're right, it's each case by case, but in this case, it's just too exposed. The landscaping would take too long, and we consider there'd be an impact in there.
I think also in relation to the other consented proposals, that obviously they are focused in and around the existing substation with all the visual impacts associated to that. There are also a number of other existing businesses with significant structures, etc. Whereas, as Sean's saying, this is quite separated from that in a relatively open arable landscape.
Okay, thanks. That's what I was trying to kind of get out. Thank you.
Julie McLaren.
Thank you. My question is about economic impact. So it said in our paper that the economic impact is directed to construction of the facility in that phase, but we've heard from Mr. Wilson in the deputation that there is an economic impact. He is an existing business. He runs an existing business which is employing people. So is that something that is pertinent? Although the application I know is not in his name or his business's name.
I think in terms of economic impact, that is overall in terms of the larger economy, etc. But in general terms, let's call it the financial circumstances of an applicant is not a material consideration. So yes, obviously there will be economic benefits to the applicant, but what we need to consider is balancing economic impact versus all the other aspects which has been undertaken. The economic impacts are not seen as being overriding in terms of all the other negatives that there are in relation to the proposals.
Thank you. Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you, convener. On the site itself, which I know relatively well as somebody who lives locally, there's actually already a solar farm and there are pylons crisscrossing the site, large pylons. Is it the case that this will not have a huge cumulative impact because of those developments?
Thanks, Councillor Illingworth, and you're correct to point them out because that is one of our concerns when you take into account the solar farm, all the pylons that are there, the other battery storages that are consented, the substation. We feel that's just too much for a rural setting such as this, and it's almost a case of where do you draw the line? We can't just keep saying yes because there's already that there. Because if we said yes on that basis, for example, then we could get another battery storage facility tomorrow and they'll say PKC are accepting of this there because there's already associated development. So you're right to point it out, but we consider that all of that combined is just too much for this rural setting now.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions?
Yes, sorry, I said I'd get back to Councillor Illingworth on his PKHD question. So can you just remind me, Councillor Illingworth, of your wording?
It was to find out if the Heritage Trust had put a written statement of archaeological instruction.
Yes, so I've got PKHD's response in front of me. I can quickly run through it in more detail than the report says. So they're broadly in agreement with what the heritage assessment has asked for, and subsequently they're just recommending a single condition that development shall not commence until the developer has secured the implementation of a programme of archaeological work in accordance with the written scheme of archaeological investigation. So they're content with what was supplied subject to that single condition.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Can I ask for a motion?
I have clarity on the vehicle numbers from the transport statement, if that's helpful for Councillor Allen, just because they asked the deputy and it was unavailable. But within the transport statement, section 3.6 says the development will take approximately 26 weeks. And section 3.7 says it's estimated of 6 HGVs per day within that 26 weeks. That's from their transport statement.
And there's a lot more information than that, Councillor Allen. There are headings in relation to construction vehicles, paragraphs 3.3, 3.4, table 3.1, and then construction vehicle types at paragraph 3.8. How long they will be there, and also covering construction staff, etc., etc. So it's quite a significant amount of information as background to your question.
Thank you. Any other further points or anything so that I can continue? Right, Councillor Cuthbert, you have a point of order.
Thank you, convener. I've listened to all the evidence and with interest, and I'm minded to move for approval or deferral, but I'd like a 10-minute recess to confer with Mr. Elliott just to see what the options are in terms of those two.
Happy for you to do that. Okay, take a 10-minute recess. Okay, folks, that's us back. Everybody here? Councillor Forbes, are you online?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, thank you. I'll now hand over to Mr. Elliott. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Members and everyone else, just to explain that there was an adjournment, and what I was doing as the solicitor to the committee was explaining the procedural options. I'll summarise very quickly, but what Councillor Cuthbert was getting advice on was if it's deferred, what's the implications? Members might be fairly familiar with a deferral. The deferral will be for specific information, wait for that to come back, and then the committee would take a decision on the application at a later point. So no decision would be taken. So it's deferring the decision for certain information. And that means the outcome wouldn't be known until it comes back to committee. The alternative is to approve or refuse and consider approval. Now, approval will obviously be subject to various conditions. You could specify them if you wish to do so. And if that is successful, then just to make members aware, it would not mean that the application would immediately be approved, because there is a statutory consultee who's still objecting, which is Historic Environment Scotland. Now, if that happens, and it has happened a couple of years ago, when it was the statutory consultee withdrew their objection later in the afternoon of the committee, then there is no consultee objection, and therefore it would then be able to be granted. However, if the objection remains, then in terms of the procedural rules, we're obliged to notify the Scottish Government of it, and they then decide whether to call it in or not. It's not certain, we don't know, that's their decision. So you can defer for further information. Likely on this, I will say on this occasion, my understanding would be if it's deferral for information about the HES position, then that potentially removes your recommended ground refusal 3, but I think the other 2 would remain. So then you would, on the deferral, you would then be taking a decision at a later point, and then you could, the other option is to either approve subject to suitable conditions, bearing in mind there's a potential for reporting it to or notifying it to the Scottish Government, or of course refuse in line with the report or something similar. So that's what I was explaining previously.
Okay then. Okay, Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, convener. I wasn't quite sure whether it was going to be me or Councillor Braun, but that's fine. I'll put forward a motion to approve. In principle, I see the objection by Historic Environment Scotland as being something that can be resolved. I think that either we can ask, well, we can look at both the route and the mechanisms to cross the actual site. But in principle, what I would like to do is propose the acceptance of this application and to incorporate a couple of conditions. In terms of the Historic Enterprise Scotland, Environment Scotland's objection, I suggest that we put in a condition that a route or solution needs to be found which is acceptable to HES. I would like to suggest that more mature trees and landscaping are incorporated around the site to counter the objections of the how it appears in the environment. I would also like to recommend that the conditions recommended by consultees be incorporated. So basically, I think looking at the site of this one, yes, it's open landscape, but I think given that the person developing the site is a local farmer who's got invested in his own environment, I suspect we're going to see the site well and truly screened fairly quickly. It's not an external body investing from London, say, for example. So there is a local interest in making it incorporating into the landscape, if you like. And I also like the idea that the money's actually coming back into the economy in the local area rather than disappearing off to other places.
Thank you. Bailey McLaren, you wish to second?
Convener, yes, thank you. I am happy to second Councillor Cuthbert's motion. I too agree with all that you said, but I would also add that I don't believe the papers maybe have captured the economic impact positively enough. This is a business that is sustaining employment, so there is an economic impact within our Perth and Kinross community, if not more locally. Also, community benefits. I know that the Deputy mentioned a charity that that his business seems to work with the RET, Royal Highland Education Trust. That is a wider community benefit. It's not on the doorstep, but it is a wider community benefit. So I'm happy to support Councillor Cuthbert. Thank you.
Thank you. That was quite a complicated motion, so I'm going to hand over to Mr. Elliott just to sum up and be clear that this is what you're proposing.
Thank you, Convener. I want to be clear about your justification, first of all. From what I've heard, I appreciate various justifications, and we have to be careful about taking into account community benefit, and we're talking community benefit because of, be blunt, you don't buy permissions. That's something we have to be very careful about. But my understanding is, I want to be clear that you're approving because your justification is you think it accords with the development plan rather than doesn't accord. So that what you're saying is the impact is acceptable, subject to conditions being placed on it, of course. And that's an important point. And it would be subject to suitable conditions. I'll come back on those in a second. You mentioned some informatives. Now, I don't know if a Section 75 legal agreement is required, but we will put that provision in just in case, and that can be carefully looked at. If it's not needed, that's fine. You mentioned some conditions. I don't think you wouldn't condition making it acceptable for HES. That's a process that has to take in its own right. Yes, you can condition the landscaping, and I think that would have been done anyway. And yes, the conditions suggested by consultees would go on. So I've referred to suitable conditions. So I think the one that would highlight that you mentioned, which you would be beefing up the landscaping requirement to what may already have been considered. So it would be approved in accordance with the development plan and is subject to suitable conditions, and that's including enhanced landscaping, informatives, and a possible Section 75 agreement. Would that be correct?
That would be fine by me. That you've summarised my ramblings quite well. Thank you.
I find that acceptable too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun, you have an amendment.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I'm proposing that we follow the recommendation of officers to refuse. I think the accumulation of existing renewable projects in the area, with those there, I cannot see the need for this outweighs the various reasons for refusal that have been put forward. Certainly reasons number 1 and number 2. So I'm proposing to follow the guidance of officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. Bailey Williamson, you wish to second?
Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you. Can I ask members if they've got any comment on the report? Just give me a second, please. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'll take a minute.
All right.
Sorry, members. Councillor Braun and Bailey Williamson, just could I address, I appreciate that you're looking to amendment to refuse in line with the report. I point out that ground 3 and the terms of that, there's been an update from HES on the impact on the Carey camp, and they now appear to be not disputing the route. So my suggestion to you is you retain that ground because there's still the HES objection, but you take the last sentence out. So it's still appropriate to refer to failing consider the impact on Carey, but you take the reference out to the route.
I'm happy to.
So it's more specific, if you like.
I'm happy to take your recommendation. Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. What would the world be without lawyers?
Yeah.
Okay, back to business. Councillor Illingworth, you wish to make a comment?
Thank you, convener. I'm going to start by sounding a bit like Willie Wilson used to, in that this is actually a site I know well. I walk the dog past along this track often, most weeks. And the committee has previously approved 3 battery storage systems in the area, and actually this is the least impactful, or less impactful than the other 3. The 2 at Jamesfield have created a lot of complaints from the Jamesfield Garden Centre. The one at Balgownie created complaints about noise from local residents. But this doesn't have any of those applications. It's a small site. It's about 1 kilometre away from the village, and it's largely hidden by the railway from the village. With regards to the transport plan, as Councillor Allen was alluding slightly obtusely, it seems to be okay. We've just had 2 very large solar farms built in this location, and there were no complaints about traffic or noise or nuisance with regards to the transport. And with regard to the location, there's a solar farm right next to it. It's got large pylons next to it as well. So I think this small site will not have a significant impact on the quality of life for the people of Abernethy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Further comments? Can I ask if Councillor Braun wishes to sum up as amendment?
No, thanks, convener. I'm fine.
Can I ask if Councillor Cuthbert wishes to sum up the motion?
No, thank you, convener.
Thank you. Then I will now hand over to Mr. Elliott for the roll call.
I think Ms Brown will do the roll call, but I want to, yes, I will simply summarise what you're voting on. The motion by Councillor Cuthbert, seconded by Councillor McLaren, is to approve subject to suitable conditions for performance as possible Section 75 agreement. The amendment is to refuse, and that is moved by Councillor Braun and seconded by Bailey Williamson. So it's motion approved and amendment refuse.
Members, in terms of Standing Order 21.5, we will now move to a roll call vote. When I call out your name, if you can advise whether you're voting for the motion to approve or the amendment to refuse. Councillor Allen.
Motion.
Councillor Braun.
Amendment.
Councillor Cuthbert.
Motion.
Councillor Forbes.
Motion.
Councillor Harvey.
Motion.
Councillor Illingworth.
Motion.
Councillor McPherson.
Motion.
Councillor Massey.
Amendment.
Bailey McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Stewart.
Amendment.
Bailey Williamson.
Amendment.
We have 7 votes for the motion and 4 votes for the amendment. Therefore, the motion to approve will carry.
Thank you for that. Then I can confirm that planning permission is therefore granted in line with the amendment and the new conditions.
Yes, just to be clear, it's not a straight grant at the moment because it has to be potentially notified to the Scottish Government. So technically speaking, it's minded to grant, those procedures be done, conditions to be drafted, etc. And we'll see what happens with the Hayes suggestion as well.
Okay, right. I know we just had a break, but we're going to take another 15-minute break. And the reason for this break is to let you read a paper that came in that Mr. Williamson handed out this morning. I know Councillor Forbes, you'll have an email of this update. Yeah. Just to give you,
thank you.
thank you. Just to give you 15 minutes to read that. Mr. Williamson will clarify this when he does his presentation. Thank you. 15 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We now move on to the local applications as 531, which is, he's just wrote, so I know he's there. Which is the erection of a dwelling house, installation of air source heat pump, private EV charging station, and associated works, land 20 metres south of East End Cottage, Balnagard, Pitlochry. And to introduce the report is Mr. Williamson.
Sorry about that, continued mic problems. Thank you, convener, and good morning, members. As has been outlined, the only local application on the agenda for today's meeting relates to a proposal to erect a dwelling house with air source heat pump, EV charger and other works on a site to the south of the B898 within the settlement boundary of Balnagard. This application has been referred to committee today in light of the receipt of 8 letters of objection. The content of those letters is summarised in paragraph 26 of the report, but largely related to excessive height, inappropriate design, loss of privacy, impacts on residential amenity, road safety concerns, and concerns over drainage, among others. As members shall note in due course when I run further through the presentation, as a consequence of amendments to the proposal, we are now in a position where the proposal can be supported. The design now tabled is far more appropriate, with a mix of traditional proportions intertwined with contemporary finishes. Furthermore, all other technical matters can be adequately controlled by planning conditions. Ultimately, it would lead to a development which is accommodated into the scale and character of properties in Balnagard, albeit with a slightly modern twist, and against a backdrop to the south of a mature and lush landscape framework. I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. This first slide shows an aerial view over Balnagard and outlines the characteristics of the tree-lined and wooded areas associated with the Balnagard burn to the south and the flatter farmland to the north, which leads down towards the River Tay. Next slide, please. This next slide shows a zoomed-in version of the aerial image, which then shows the site with the existing garage, bus shelter and featured trees within the site. It also shows the relationship with Cairncroft to the west and Rosebank and East End Cottage to the north, with wider Balnagard Farm beyond. Next slide, please. We now see the location plan of the site, which shows the general pattern of development of surrounding dwellings in the vicinity. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the site plan with the proposed dwelling in a central position towards the B898 boundary. Associated drainage would be located in the garden ground to the west, while a parking area serving both the new property and East End Cottage would be located to the east. The trees to the south of the site would be retained as part of the proposals, albeit with the loss of 2 trees. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the elevation of the proposal is now tabled. While I appreciate it may be difficult for members to make out, the upper floor within the roof space would see the utilisation of contemporary dormers fronting the road, with stone finishes to the walls with traditional gable pitches. Next slide, please. Next, we see artist impression of the perspective views of the property. The frontage is shown to the top left, while top right is the view back eastwards from just beyond Rosebank and Cairncroft. The image at the bottom is the rear elevation of the property. Next slide, please. This slide shows some photo montages prepared by the agent to further illustrate the scale associated with neighbouring property from the east and west respectively. And I'll now show members a series of photographs taken recently by the case officer. Next slide, please. First, we see the view westwards along the B898, which runs through the centre of Balnagard. This shows the existing lay-by arrangement and bus shelter to the left. And on the opposite side of the road, East End Cottage, which is also owned by the applicant. On the right is the existing stone-built coal shed, which would be lost as part of the proposals. Next slide, please. Lastly, we see the view southeast from the B898, which shows the vegetated cover across the stone boundary wall and backdrop of trees beyond. 2 trees, as I said, would be lost as part of the proposals, but the majority would remain and would be compensated for on the site. The photo on the right shows the slightly unkempt condition of the site, within which the building footprint would be towards the foreground. Next slide, please. As referenced by the convener, it was just to add that a last-minute circulation of a committee update paper was undertaken this morning. This has explained that additional condition 14 has been added to require a revised site plan to adjust car parking spaces and circulation prior to the commencement of development. In addition, there have also been slight tweaks to conditions 4, 9 and 10 to tighten them up, and in the case of landscaping requirement, to replace them within 5 years should the initial scheme fail. That now concludes my presentation, and I will leave members with the proposed site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson, and we do have a deputation on this item as well, so I'll hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputations procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Can I call on Ms. Keith? Good morning. You've been here with us all morning. I'm sure you're aware of the process. When you're comfortable, I'll start the clock, and you've got 5 minutes for your deputation. Press the red button when you're ready to go.
Good morning. I'd like to start today by thanking members for allowing me to speak. My name is Teresa Keith and I live at Cairncroft in Balnagard. That's the property that boundaries the proposed site, and I'm here today to represent the wider residents of Balnagard. If you're not familiar with it as an area, Balnagard is a beautiful example of a Perthshire village. As a community, we are passionate about where we live and feel very privileged to live there. To be clear from the outset, I am not against genuine residential development in our community, but I am against deception. And there are aspects of this application that have sought to mislead both the community and the committee, and I am not okay with that. I won't bombard you with all of them today. I want to highlight 3 of these concerns. Number 1, East End Cottage Garden amenity. The proposed site is currently the only garden space associated with East End Cottage. The architect's design and access statement describes it as a plot of land, currently overgrown and wild with vegetation. This is misleading. It may look overgrown and wild, but its status is still the cottage garden. In recent years, the applicant has chosen not to maintain this garden or the roadside verge, creating a visible eyesore that undermines the character of the village and shows little respect for our community. On page 7, section 39 of the handling report, the appraisal assumes another pending application will provide a new garden to the rear. What it doesn't say is that application is subject to objection from an adjoining farm owner over access through their agricultural holding, plus other objections. There is no guarantee, therefore, any replacement garden will ever be possible. In conclusion, the loss of the garden ground cannot be justified on speculative provision. Approving this application now would remove East End Cottage's only garden and permanently reduce its amenity, contrary to both local and national policy. And now move on to point 2. Which is the intended use of the proposed development. And I'm aware that this is not considered a material planning condition, but I'd like you to hear me out on it. You will see from the objections submitted, which equate, by the way, to 50% of Balnagard's permanent households, that residents are unanimous in their concern about the true purpose of the development. I have spoken to an architect of 35 years standing, a local builder familiar with buildings in the area, and a local councillor who all agree this development does not resemble a residential dwelling, but looks more to be like a potential holiday let. It also does not reflect the character of any other building in the village. On page 5, section 28 of the handling report, it states the future use is not considered a material planning issue. And that may be correct, that may be correct in planning terms, but the impact of the unacceptable amenity is a material consideration and is contrary both to national and local policy. As I have noted in the executive summary email to you on Monday, Balnagard already has a substantial imbalance of holiday accommodation. And for this reason, if you do approve this application, I would ask that a condition is attached to ensure the property can only ever be used as a permanent residence. Number 3 is the placement of the septic tank. The applicant is proposing a 14-person capacity septic tank and a 33 metre squared soakaway 5 metres from our shared boundary. The external wall of our home is just 1 metre from that inside boundary. From that shared boundary. Page 8, section 49 of the handling report states the soakaway was moved more than 5 metres from the boundary. Well, it might have been moved 5 metres away from the roadside boundary, but it wasn't moved 5 metres from our shared boundary. Okay. More importantly, because we have permeable drains, building standards require it to be at least 10 metres from the shared line. I would ask anyone here, how would you feel about a 14-person septic tank and a soakaway just outside your bedroom window? And I can tell you, I'm not keen. So in summary, I am asking that conditions are placed that are put in place that would protect us from these 3 points. And I believe all these conditions here meet the 6 tests for planning. However, if you feel any don't, then I would urge you to consider the use of a Section 75 agreement to protect the community and to protect my property from any flood damage in the future. And I thank you for hearing my concerns today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. We'll let the chat function populate if there's any questions. Councillor Forbes.
Yeah, thanks for that. Can I just ask, you referenced it was 50% of Balnagar, but you said it wasn't 50% of the households. Can you give us some sense of the balance between permanent households and holiday let accommodation within the village, please?
Of course, if you just give me 1 second. Do you want it as percentages or numbers?
Whatever you've got handy will be fine.
Okay. There are 16 permanent residential homes. There are 5 private holiday homes. There are 3 holiday rental homes. There is 1 vacant home. And there is, well, it sits outside the village, Ballintaggart Farm, so I don't suppose that's relevant in that context. So of the 16 residential homes, there were 8 objections.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Harvey.
Can I just interject here just for a second? Could we please, as a committee, please ask questions that are relevant to the planning application?
Yep, thanks, convener and vice convener. Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. I just wanted to confirm, I didn't quite catch the name of your, and thank you very much for your presentation. That was, you didn't come across as nervous at all. Could you just identify where your house is on the map that's just above you there, just for my information? Thank you.
Yeah, okay, sorry. The red line that runs to the left of the proposed site is running the wall. That's my wall that red line runs along. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun, you have a point of order.
Finally, yeah, just going back to your previous comment, convener, I just want to clarify what you mean about, is this to do with the intended use you're talking about? That we can't question that, is that where we're going?
No, it was to do with Councillor Forbes' question on how many houses were used for. That's not relevant to the planning application.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener, and thanks, Ms Keith, for your deputation. In your deputation there, you spoke about this being a garden, and you would like it to be retained as a garden. I understand that. Is that the be all and the end all, or would you have no objection if something maybe slightly less populous was proposed?
Absolutely, and I think I said that kind of at the beginning. I'm not against a development in that place. What I'm against is capitalism in our community. If I'm really honest, if we put aside just now the report, that's what I'm against. And I'm against the lack of transparency in the application that was submitted in the first instance. And I think it's unfair on us as a community and you as a committee that if you're being asked to make decisions on an application, then you deserve transparency, and we certainly deserve transparency. And it's been noted, and I cannot, on good authority, that the applicant was approached and was asked outright after the design and access statement originally put through by Mackenzie Strickland, which stated that he was going to live there with his family. He was asked outright by a member of our community, is that right? Are you genuinely going to live there? And he had to, and it's the reason he didn't do a prior consultation meet with any, because he would have had to lied. But he had to say to that individual, actually, no, I won't be living there. And incidentally, after that question was asked, a revised statement came in from Mackenzie Strickland and that section was removed.
Could I just interrupt you? You have to be, in planning terms, we deal with the planning use, not the individuals. So be very careful with any suggestion of lying, etc. We're not dealing with individuals. And as you accepted earlier on, and I'm pointing out to members now, just to amplify what Convener said, you are looking at an application before you for a dwelling house. You're not looking at anything else. You're not looking at a short-term let. If that's a consequence later or a possibility later on, that is not relevant to you at the moment. You're assessing it as it is. So just to be clear, you're looking at the plan, the design in front of you and the use. And as I say, if you, in responding to questions, you need to stick to kind of the general principles rather than the individuals involved.
Could I just comment on that actually, because there is cases where a Section 75 agreement has been used in order to protect amenity in places, and I have examples of that if you would like me to email them on to you. Okay.
There appears to be no further questions. You're free to go.
There is.
Sorry, Councillor Braun. Yes, that's amongst your point of order. Please continue.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking, Peter. Finally, I had two questions, and thank you for your deputation. But you've pretty much answered the first one, and I was concerned that obviously you're talking about the intended use. And I was going to ask you if you had any definitive proof for that, but obviously you've had some verbal implication. But the other point I wanted to raise was on the circulation you sent around to us. There was a planning condition which you say you would like to see introduced. It seems to be quite well worded. Quite well worded. Where did you get this condition from? Is it? It's not one I recognise that we've used. So I wonder if you could tell me the source of that one.
So I've just spent every moment that I have for the past 4 days investigating every single aspect of planning across Scotland that I can. I have slept possibly 7 hours. So this is how much this matters to me. And from everything that I pulled together and from all the research, I was able to pull together that document. In order to evidence that to you, I would have to email it all to you, but it's in here. Okay. And could I also say one other thing? And I really would look for some reassurance because it's really upsetting me, is I need guarantees that that septic tank and soakaway will not damage my property, because according to building standards regulation, it states quite clearly that it needs to be 10 metres if I've got permeable drains, and I've got 4 permeable drains that run the length of my house. So I need assurances that if this does go ahead, that building standards regulation will be met, and that is what will happen. And if it doesn't happen, then can somebody clearly explain to me why my house will be okay if it's only 5 metres?
Yes, I just want to come back. Is this wording being used in somewhere else in Scotland? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
I think as a convener of planning, I can assure you that your fears about any thing about the septic tank or anything else will be taken into consideration, and I'm sure that one of us as the committee will ask the officers that question.
There's no further questions. You're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Can I call on Mr. McCafferty, agent for the application? Mr. McCafferty, be aware that you'll have 5 minutes for your deputation. So when you're comfortable to start.
Good morning, convener and members of the committee. On behalf of the applicant, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of this application. I would like to address the objections raised point by point and outline how the proposal mitigates these concerns. I'd firstly like to apologise for any stress this application has caused. Number one, the site description. The description should not affect the material assessment of the application. What is important is that the proposal represents a positive reuse of the land that is currently unused by the cottage across the road, bringing into use beneficial use of the improved and visual contribution to the village. Number two was the future use of the property. This was obviously picked up. The application is for a private residential dwelling. The layout reflects a modern family living requirements, and any alternative use would be required to a separate change of use of application subject to full scrutiny. And the last point I would like to make is for the proximity of the soakaway. The soakaway has been designed in line with building standards. Final drainage design will be reviewed and approved through the building warrant process, ensuring full compliance and protection of neighbouring land. Finally, in summary, the design has been refined and addressed concerns meet the policy requirements and will deliver a high quality sustainable home that makes positive use of the land. The scheme balances contemporary design with traditional context and contributes to the natural evolution of the village. We believe this is a sensitive and appropriate addition to Balnagard and respectfully ask the committee to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Willing to take questions from members?
Yes, certainly.
Councillor Braun.
Thank you very much, Darcy. Thank you for your deputation. I'll come back to this question of future use because it seems to have been a common theme through all the various objections registered. As far as you're aware, then this is going to be used as a private residence by the applicant. And the second part of that is, if that's the case, then there will be no objection to any form of enforceable condition put in, if possible, that it can only be used as a private residence.
The applicant has a cooking school along the road from Balnagard. The intention and purpose of this building is for a residential use only. We would have no objections with any conditions stating if it was objected to being a long-term or short-term lets.
Appears to be no further questions. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations on this application. I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I see there's already questions in for officers. Councillor Forbes.
Thanks, Convener. As you rightly predicted, one of us was going to ask the inevitable question. It's to do with the soakaway and the various things. We seem to have two completely different opinions on this, and I wonder if any officers in the room can give us the facts over where we stand on this issue.
Yeah, that's a matter that would be covered in the building warrant application process, so not necessarily a significant planning consideration, but it would require to meet the building regulations, and that will be considered through the building warrant process.
Can I follow up on that, convener? I appreciate Christian's a planning officer and not building standards, but is there anyone in the room can actually clarify whether the 5 metres is right or the 10 metres is right?
Yeah, as you might be aware, I'm the service manager for development management and building standards.
Excellent. You could answer the question,
Yeah,
Christian.
and
Thank you.
There's no indication that this wouldn't meet the regulations.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson.
Yeah, I think my question is probably what the one people are waiting to ask as well, is about the requirement for a condition to be imposed to prevent it from becoming a short-term let. And I was just wondering if officers could just take us through that process of how that might work if it were to come.
Thanks, Bailey Williamson, and I think as most members will be quite familiar with the debate over short-term let, the discussion on it's been long and is continuing for some time. Clearly, the decision of a parallel committee was to go out to consultation on the creation of a short-term let control area. This is a site that would lie within that area. Obviously, granting a house at this time, and it is applied for as a house, and we're considering it as a house. By the time at which it is constructed and ready for occupation, there's probably a strong likelihood that the short-term let control area would be in place at that point, and therefore that would be the mechanism to ultimately require an application to be submitted to be considered, as opposed to utilising a condition to unnecessarily restrict the property on the basis of a suspicion at this time. It's been applied for as a house and we'd consider it as such.
So if I understand correctly, what you're advocating is we wait until the control zone gets put in, but over and above that, it is at the moment, it's my understanding we're looking at this application on the basis that it is for a residential property, not for a short-term let, and I don't think we can prevent it from going forward as a short-term let. Is that correct? That would need an additional application to come in to cover that, rather than us include it in the application now.
I was going to bring in Colin on that because I'm just slightly unclear in terms of the way you've worded it. What I'm saying is that we wouldn't apply a condition generally to restrict a property to dwelling house only. We assess proposals on their merits. Clearly, at this time, one of the considerations that we have looked at in the past is the reduction in the availability of residential property. Obviously, there is no property there at present, so it's not necessarily resulting in a reduction, notwithstanding I appreciate the concerns of local residents as to concentrations, not just in Balnaguard, but within wider Highland Perthshire as well. But I certainly don't think a condition's necessary just now, but if Colin wanted to add anything else, he can.
I think just to amplify what Mr. Williamson said is, I don't recall that condition being applied to previous applications. It's something that I don't recall being done. I'm looking at them, yes. I would have concerns about the competency of that condition given the 5 tests for conditions. I would also point out that the way the description is, erection of a dwelling house, now that it says dwelling house, and the dwelling house has a class use, it's backed up by a class use. So if you tried, first of all, I'm not convinced it meets the 5 tests, but also the condition, if it was competent, anyone could come along and ask with section 42 to ask to take that condition off. So I appreciate that would have to rely on assessment, but as I say, I would question the competency of putting that condition on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen, do you have a question for officers?
Thank you, convener. Yeah, in the deputation, there was a request for a section 75 order. Can we make a comment about that, please?
Certainly in respect of section 75s to restrict use, occupation, etc. of properties, there was a very clear instruction from the Chief Planner, Jim McKinnon, back in 2014 that section 75s as a mechanism to restrict the use of property in such a way was not something which was to be encouraged. So the stance would be that that would be unnecessary in this instance.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson, you have 2 questions.
Yes, thank you. It's around condition 9, and I was just wondering whether officers would include the use of semi-mature trees to replace the existing trees, just even as a fraction of it, and the use of bat boxes and bird boxes. If they can be avoided using being placed in self-basing environments, just for the protection of the wildlife.
Thank you, Bailey Williamson. Yes, should members be minded to expand upon the wording within condition 9 for semi-mature species, then by all means, yes, that's something which could be incorporated. And then the bat and bird boxes, I'm just quickly scanning through. Yeah, we do obviously have the details of that within condition 8. And then obviously it is then cross-referencing to the recommendations of guidance offered by the Scottish Wildlife Trust, which I assume, and I'm saying assume, will cover aspects such as sighting on particular elevations.
Yeah, I think what Paul's saying there is all the biodiversity things you've spoken to there are already included for. The concern I would have in relation to the enhancement of the landscaping requirement, that again, similar to the discussion we had, are we saying that without those more mature trees that the development is unacceptable? So we're requiring something to make it acceptable, or is it just a preference? So without those mature trees, is the landscaping within someone's garden not acceptable? So again, I'll leave that with you. If you consider that the necessity for mature trees is serving a planning purpose, is necessary, reasonable, all the tests that Colin referred to, or it's just a preference. And as we said, I think the biodiversity matters are already included for.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener. In listening to the deputation, I found that the biggest voice of concern was about this 14 people septic tank and its positioning. Can we condition them to put it somewhere else?
From that perspective, Councillor Allen, I think, as we've heard today, there was another application that was under consideration by the council as well, which was to the north of East End Cottage. And as I understand it, the septic tank was then to accommodate for both developments. Obviously, this is coming forward on its own right now. The other application to the north of East End Cottage has been withdrawn, and they are looking at alternative proposals. But subject to obviously building standards and the building warrant process, if the proposal were required to be moved for any purpose, we as planning officers could look at the potential for a non-material variation for drainage to be relocated elsewhere within the red light site boundary. So there might be scope to actually put it further to the east as opposed to in the west. But as it stands, from our perspective, we are satisfied with what's been shown.
Thank you. Bailey McLaren.
Convener, thank you. Now, just before I ask, bear with me. My question is actually, I think this is right, condition 4. No, not that one. The one about the road surface. The road surface, and not to ensure that that we have material washing onto the road and surface water. And it's stating tarmac Adam. Am I correct? I'm a wee bit confused as to my different piles of paper here. So, am I correct? I think is my question here. I'm a bit between, am I correct? Have I got this right or wrong? Is this pre-construction or post-construction?
Sorry, I'm sitting there frantically pressing the button. Obviously, members will have had the circulation in respect of the suggested amendments to the conditions, of which condition 4 was one of them. So it would be prior to the dwelling house being occupied, the access would have to be built to that appropriate standard, and it would be hot rolled asphalt on top of the bitumen macadam with the subbase beneath it. So it's basically all three of those aspects listed is the requirement for roads in that instance.
So, will surface water not roll off the macadam onto the main road? Or is that, will there be a drainage within?
Obviously, that would then be subject to a parallel application in terms of roads and the finer detail of drains, etc.
So it's just a standard condition that requires information to be provided to set out how it would be dealt with. So in general, if the driveway slopes down towards the road, there would be tar macadam and then a drainage channel. If it slopes the other way then there's not necessarily a need for a drainage channel because the water is going the other way. The reason for the tar macadam is so there's not loose chippings or the such like within a set distance. So details of the exact arrangements will reflect the situation on site.
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, convener. We heard mention of this was garden ground for the other cottage. Do we not need any change of use for that, for building on? Is it not classed as garden ground essentially?
It's in essence assessed as part of it, just with the erection of the dwelling house. So it doesn't need a separate change of use per se.
Thank you. Bailey Williamson.
Yeah, sorry about that, Convener, I forgot to come back. It's about the colour of the building as demonstrated in the documents, and I was just wondering if officers have oversight on the colour, or will they be receiving samples to approve before the building gets built?
Thank you, Bailey Williamson. Yeah, it certainly was the position of officers that we are happy enough with the design, the colours proposed. The one thing that has become apparent this morning upon looking into it in slightly greater detail is that obviously the use of the black standing seam metal roof is proposed, and what the architect had mentioned was RAL 9001, which transpires to be cream. I would suspect that this has been a typo on their part, and it was actually meant to be 9011, which was graphic black. So we could add a further condition on just to have updated information submitted to ourselves to confirm that. But generally, we're happy with the materials and the coloration proposed.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Can I ask for a motion? Councillor Braun.
Yeah, thanks, convener. My motion is to refuse the application. Balnagard is very much what you would call a traditional village, I suppose. The photographs we saw didn't really show it clearly. I've seen that myself. Very much a traditional village, as you would imagine a village to be, I think. Very traditionally built houses, and at each side of the road, a hamlet perhaps is a better description of it. I don't really have any objection to the site being used to build on, as one of the deputations said. Don't see a problem there at all. And looking at the visuals, the actual means of construction, the stone effect, would to some extent blend in with the area. But what I do think is the problem is the dormer windows, the way that roof is constructed. And my thoughts were that it emphasises the massing of the building, and I think in that way it places it outside an ideal fitting for that village, and therefore I feel it should be refused on the grounds of policy P1A, because it doesn't contribute to the siting of the area at all, and supporting that policy 1BC, which is another factor. There are a number of policies in NPF 4, that's I think 14, 16 and 17, which really very much follow up the same thing. It's a detrimental effect to the village environment. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? You have a seconder. No seconder. Oh, it's a late entry. Councillor Allen.
Yes, I'd like to formally second. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask for an amendment? Councillor Illingworth.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that we go along with what the planning officers are proposing, and I'm happy that they've done all due diligence on their work.
Okay, do you have a seconder? I will second that amendment. Yes. Okay. Do committee have any comments on the report? No comments on the report. Councillor Braun, do you wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Convener. I pretty much said it. I think it's just the overall massing is the problem, I think, on this one. Not so much the site. Thank you.
Councillor Illingworth, do you wish to sum up?
No, I'm content. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll hand over to Mr. Elliott. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I think first of all, we need to clarify the terms of the motion to refuse and just to be how it might be narrated in any minute. You mentioned it very generally, but there are actually, and you correctly referred to policy 1A and 1BC. There are other policies, but it's the same reasoning. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're refusing the basis proposals contrary to NPF 4 policy 14. I think you kind of mentioned that, which is livable places. Policy 17A it would be, which is rural homes. You've also got, and you correctly mentioned Perth and Gross Local Development Plan 2 2019 policy 1A and 1BC, which is placemaking. And I'd point out there's also it is a settlement, so it's 17C as well, residential areas. Now it's the justification which I will particularly want to clarify. I think you've got the size and scale and nature of the dormers, which are of course fronting the public road. So the size and scale and nature of the dormers fronting the public road or the proposal is not in keeping with the character of the area. Would that be technical? Okay. So that is the motion to refuse. Now, in terms of Councillor Illingworth and Convener Massey, I think it would be approve in terms of the amended report. And also there was mention of a condition in terms of materials as well, colour of materials. So I take it you're adding that in as well. Certainly Mr. Williamson indicated that would be possible because of there's a bit opted out on the plans.
Out of the wording from the colour. Yeah.
Yeah. So members, we have motion to refuse as I've outlined and amendment to approve.
Thank you. In terms of standing order 21.5, we'll now move to roll call vote. When I call out your name, if you can advise whether you're voting for the motion to refuse or for the amendment to approve. Councillor Allen.
Motion.
Councillor Braun.
Motion.
Councillor Cuthbert.
Amendment.
Councillor Forbes.
Motion.
Councillor Harvey.
Amendment.
Councillor Illingworth.
Amendment.
Councillor McPherson.
Amendment.
Councillor Massey.
Amendment.
Bailey McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor Stewart.
Amendment.
Bailey Williamson.
Motion.
We have 4 votes for the motion and 7 votes for the amendment. Therefore, the amendment to approve will carry.
Thank you for that. That means that permission is therefore granted with the expanded wording on conditions. Thank you. And as there is no further business today, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and for members of the public and for the deputations for taking part. Thank you very much.